Hey, what's going on, folks? We have a mega show for you today. That means lots of stories. The first one is another train derailed recently in Springfield, Ohio. Officials are saying that it's not a risk to public health. We'll talk about it. Novak Djokovic, #1 tennis player in the world, recently got to go to Australia, but still can't come to America because of the Biden mandate for incoming travelers. A lot of people don't even know about this, but we're going to talk about it because we have to. Trump suggested, quote, freedom cities in a recent campaign ad, and the internet's abuzz about it.
In other words, we'll actually build new cities in our country again. These freedom cities will reopen the frontier, reignite American imagination, and give hundreds of thousands of young people and other people, all hardworking families, a new shot at home ownership and, in fact, the American dream.
What do you think? We'll talk about it. Trump apparently wants to demand $50 trillion in reparations for the Wuhan lab leak. Nigel Farage tweeted this Daily Mail article. We'll talk about that. Bernie Sanders disappoints progressives again by taking no stance against the Ukraine war. Classic spineless Bernie, who hasn't figured out his shtick yet. Rachel Levine has a nice diet plan for us. We'll listen to that and react.
Hello. I am Admiral Rachel Levine, the Assistant Secretary for Health at the United States Department of Health and Human Services. March is National Nutrition Month.
And a female Border Patrol agent is in the hospital after getting attacked on a job she was doing alone. I have a few opinions about that. That's today's mega show, folks. Hope you stay tuned. It's going to be a great show, and it starts now.
The Dream Rare Podcast, welcome to the show. The way to get the news at the desk or on the road. Let's go. God is great and success in our control. The world is crazy, but we get better from obstacles, yeah.
What's going on, everybody? I tried to go live on Rumble today. I don't think it worked, but from now on, I'm trying to do Facebook, YouTube, and Rumble. But I got a bunch of stories to get through. We're going to talk about the new train derailment, Novak Djokovic not being able to play in the United States as of now, Trump floating the idea of quote-unquote freedom cities, him also floating the idea of tens of trillions of dollars of reparation for the Wuhan lab leak, Bernie Sanders caving to the war and basically saying nothing, female border agent alone got attacked, and of course you've all been wondering, what is Rachel Levine's diet plan? So that's going to be the last show. It's called a mega show for a reason, folks. Thanks for being here. First story of the day. There was another train derailment in Springfield, Ohio. It got caught on camera. It went super viral. I just want to read a little bit of the article. This is from WH Ohio TV 7. Clark County officials held a press conference that detailed the contents of the train cars, but assured that there was no risk to public health. After analysis, 4 tankers were identified with non-hazardous materials. 2 tankers contained residual amounts of diesel, exhaust fluid. Other 2 contain residual amounts of polyacrylamide water solution. I don't even know how to say that. There was no spillage detected, and officials claim there was no risk to public health, although the site remained active. So this was going viral because everybody saw the clips of it. They saw hazmat suits or whatever, and they're like, oh, geez, here we go again. How come, this is happening? Here's what I'm going to say, and then I'm going to move on. Nobody really thinks about train derailments until a train derails and something crazy happens like in East Palestine or Palestine or Pete Buttigieg County or whatever you want to call it. So I looked it up. I said, how many train derailments are there a year? CBS 7 claims that, yes, there are an average of 1,700 train derailments a year. Independent.co.uk says since 1990 to 2021, there have been 54,539 train derailments in the United States, an average of 1,704 per year. So this is all I'll say. I don't know what's going on. I can't really tell you the full story. It does seem odd, but I guess trains derail every single day. That doesn't mean it's okay. I mean, that sounds alarming to me. Maybe they should look into that or fix the tracks, because especially if you're doing hazardous materials, maybe if trains are derailing every day, you shouldn't be carrying hazardous materials via train. I don't know. What do you guys think? That's the story. A lot of people are going to hype it up. Yes, there's a lot of train derailments. I don't know. I don't know what to think. The East Palestine one obviously sucks, but if there's that many, I don't understand why they keep doing it. Second story of the day is Novak Djokovic is the number one tennis player in the world. Last year, he got banned from the US Open. He got banned from the Australia Open. They interviewed him. They said, Novak, why won't you just get the vaccine? Why are you doing this? What if this affects your legacy? Novak bravely said, heroically said, I'm in tune with my body. I don't care what the cost is. I'm at peace, basically. And this year, he got to return to the Australia Open, and heroically, he won the Australia Open this year in front of Bill Gates, who was in attendance. You really can't script this stuff. Or can you? No, but seriously, it was an amazing Australia Open. You would think because, right, America's the land of the free. A lot of people actually don't know this, and I'll tell you why, but because of the Biden administration, Novak Djokovic still can't get into the United States. Hundreds of millions of people in the world can go to Australia. They can go to Saudi Arabia. They can go to Dubai. They could go to Canada even. Even Justin Trudeau is less tyrannical about this. But the Biden administration, for some reason, just won't let incoming immigrants in unless, of course, they come across the border illegally. Then it seems like they have a different set of rules. I want to read a note from Akira the Don, who is a DJ that I used to go listen to his music when I lived in Los Angeles. He's a great guy. He does something called Meaning Wave music. Very cool guy. He responded to my post on Instagram that went semi-viral, and he said, it's not just tourists that are still denied entry to the USA without the vaccine, but people like me with legally and expensively obtained visas who live there with their families and ran businesses that hired America is very corrupt indeed. So even Akira the Don, who ran a business in the United States, who's probably paid tens of thousands of dollars to get a visa to the United States, he wasn't in the US when this law went into order, and he still can't get back to the United States. I mean, it's absolutely insane. There's hundreds of millions of people who can't get to this country because they're not vaccinated. America's one of the most corrupt countries in the world when it comes to this policy. I want to say this. This is the Biden administration's fault. The brunt of this is on Democrats, obviously. It's their policy. It's Biden. He needs to own it. I'm not going to blame Republicans. I'm not going to, act like both parties are the same on this topic. They're actually not. This is solely the Biden administration's responsibility. But what I will say when it comes to Republican media is they love to get all upset and get change on stuff that doesn't matter. Like, I'll give you an example. You really don't hear much about what I just said. I mean, Thomas Massey's talking about it. I'm talking about it. People who can't get to the United States are talking about it. But you don't hear that much Republican and independent media trying to make this a priority. Like, Biden, you're costing our country trillions of dollars in, tourism. You're hurting still to this day after 3 years of the pandemic lockdowns and stuff. You're still hurting so many people, their family, they can't see their kids. Like, this should be one of the biggest things that Republicans are talking about. But I bet you if you watch the CPAC speeches, it's almost like it doesn't exist because they just basically say whatever they say. So here's what I'll say. You had a lot of Republican media talk about, oh my God, Pete Buttigieg, when are you going to resign? Yet none of them talked about the fact that Trump hired Mitch McConnell's wife for that same position. Just as corrupt. That's what I call the fake bipartisan circus. They complain about things that they're also guilty for. They're not looking to get a solution, and they hype up and get Pete Buttigieg to respond, which he should have for East Palestine. Don't get me wrong. But it's like, imagine if all conservative and Republican media came together and said, the Biden administration still will not let people into this country without a vaccine. This is something that would get a lot of bipartisan support. Even a lot of Democrats don't even know this is happening because nobody's talking about it. And I wish we could use our energy to actually focus on something that mattered, that we could get results with, something as big as this, because I just don't hear that much about this. And I think it's one of the most important issues that no one's talking about. With that being said, I found this viral clip from 2019. I want to play it because it kind of has to do with the Djokovic mandatory vaccination. This is Meghan McCain, the quote-unquote television Republican, talking to Marianne Williamson, who is a little psychotic, or a lot of psychotic, but she is actually right about Big Pharma. I would never vote for Marianne Williamson. She's annoying. She's too far left. But they tried to smear her about mandatory vaccinations in 2019. Just look at the foreshadowing of what was going to happen. Let's watch.
just came out as the anti-vaxxer candidate. You
No,
said,
I did not,
well, let me
Megan.
finish. You think mandatory vaccines, calling a mandate on them would be, quote, draconian and Orwellian. So what do you say to children and the parents of children who are going through chemotherapy and would be exposed to measles without that, and to all the people suffering out there because of the measles outbreak?
Millions of Americans. First of all, I am not anti-vaccine, and I'm certainly not.
Then why would you say that?
I think I think I misspoke in that one sentence, but I'd like to express myself.
So that was, I'm going to play the second clip as well. That was June 20th, right? June 20th, 2019, 7 months before the lockdown. They were on television calling her an anti-vaxxer because she didn't believe in mandatory vaccination. If you look up certain dictionary definitions, they say an anti-vaxxer is somebody who doesn't like vaccines, or an anti-vaxxer is also somebody who's against mandatory vaccination. So the reason I predicted mandatory vaccinations were around the corner in 2019, some people see my tweet and they say, oh my gosh, you're prophetic. How did you know? I could just act like I'm a wizard and be like, oh, I'm so smart, but I'm really not. I mean, I'm not an idiot, but at the same time, the reason I predicted it is because it was already here. They were already talking about it. They were already paving the groundwork for mandatory vaccinations, and you could see it all over the place. And when you said, hey, I don't agree with mandatory, I don't care if you get a vaccine or not, but I don't want it to be mandated, they started calling people anti-vaxxers in 2019. Even before the pandemic came. So, my viral tweet, I said that the mandatory vaccinations are around the corner. I said the left wing doesn't care because they believe in universal, healthcare, which is government monopoly over the healthcare industry. It's a disaster. And then I said conservatives don't care because they're not really privy to big pharma. It was true then. Some are now, but really it's like an afterthought to a lot of people. Like, whatever, we're going to just fix the economy. It's like, not if big pharma keeps getting away with what it's getting away with. But in general, I just wanted to play the second clip too. 2019, Meghan McCain in The View calling people anti-vaxxers and paving the groundwork for what would be 2020 and 2021, whether she knew it or not.
The fact that you have a problem, and this is part of the same problem we're talking about here, the fact that you have a problem with the revolving door policy by which Big Pharma and the CDC and the FDA are so cozy so that millions of Americans who are not anti-science and are not anti-vaccine have some deep concerns. The days of blind faith in Big Pharma are over. The days of blind faith in the idea that our government agencies are doing the proper oversight and proper advocacy.
So that was her in 2019 saying, I'm not anti-vaxxer. It's just like people, she was telling the truth. That's why, even though she is a little bit psychotic and I don't agree with like 80% of what she says on Twitter, I did like the fact that she was in the Democratic debates because she did speak the truth like that. Even in the debate, I remember she was like, the left talks about healthcare, the right talks about healthcare, but nobody's getting to the core. It's like, it doesn't matter if they're just shoving pills and vaccines down your throat and everyone's getting fatter. It's like, this guy's got McDonald's, this one's got Pfizer. You can mandate healthcare, whatever, but it's not really going to fix health in America. She said that on the Democratic stage, and it's probably the only real thing that's been said in the last couple of years. And I just thought that clip was interesting on the Novak Djokovic story, is that they were paving the way for that. But once again, hundreds of millions of people can't get into the United States. They can't get into Canada. They can't get into Dubai. They can't get into Saudi Arabia. You can go to Australia now. I could fly to Australia there and back, but an unvaccinated Australian can't come to America. Our country is, the freedom of, or the illusion of like being the freest country in the world. It's not true. And Big Pharma swallowed up the television. They swallowed up both parties. They swallowed up both candidates for last election. They've swallowed up, the food industry essentially with the Bayer-Monsanto merger. But if you talk about that, it bothers you because like some people wear blue hats and some people wear red hats and they just yell at each other and they get like so emotionally upset. They start fantasizing idol worships in certain politicians. And God forbid you mention the fact that, Biden and Trump, they both took a $1 million donation from Pfizer. It freaks people out. They're like, but I thought the blue guy only did that. My guy says he never takes money. Yeah, but he lied to you. Is that a new thing? Like you thought politicians never lied? And here's my next story of the day is I see Twitter aghast. They're like, oh my gosh, the speech at CPAC was so good. He's talking, he's saying things. It's like, wow, a politician saying things after, yeah, that's so cool. Like someone wrote a speech for them and they said so many cool things. Wow. People are still falling for this stuff. It's very childish, but it is what it is. Here's I wouldn't say a controversial issue, but there's going to be some people who agree and disagree. Here's Trump's idea of a freedom city where the U.S. government is going to build on federal land 5 or 10 new freedom cities, and it's going to be like MAGA central, I guess, just freedom, prosperity, new city built by the U.S. government. Let's take a look.
We should hold a contest to charter up to 10 new cities and award them to the best proposals for development. In other words, we'll actually build new cities in our country again. These freedom cities will reopen the frontier, reignite American imagination, and give hundreds of thousands of young people and other people, all hardworking families, a new shot at home ownership and, in fact, the American dream.
Before I respond to that, I want to respond to a comment. Someone said Anomaly seems black-pilled recently. Black-pilled, for those who don't know, means like pessimistic, no faith. I'm one of the most optimistic people you'll see. If you see me riding around the city, I'm blasting music, I'm singing, I have a great life. I'm super joyful. I woke up today excited. I've been in a great mood. I'm the least black-pilled person you'll ever see, but people try to lie about me because I tell you to put your faith in Christ and put your faith in God and put your faith, after you believe in God, I believe, believe in the gifts he gave you and stop falling for the used car salesman shtick from politicians. And when I say that, people that don't believe in God or people that believe in politicians more than God, they spiral and then they say, oh, Anomaly's so pessimistic because they've put their Christ-like faith into a vaccine salesman who works for one of the major two political parties who takes hundreds of millions of dollars from donors. So if you tell people that, they try to say, oh, Anomaly is so pessimistic. I'm so optimistic. I'm so excited about life. I'm so grateful. I'm so fortunate. I wake up every day just feeling like so nice. But then, God forbid, I shatter someone's illusion because instead of believing in God, they literally put godlike faith into a politician. And then their whole world shatters because it's not real. It's all fake. So it's like they can't handle it. So then they start having to lie about me like, oh my gosh, if I don't believe in God the way I believe in the Trump, what do I do? It's like, who told you to get that obsessed over a politician? It's okay to like somebody, to vote for somebody, to show up for an event, even to donate for somebody. I don't donate to politicians, but even that's fine. But you get what I'm saying? I'm not black-pilled at all. That's a false narrative of people who put Christ-like faith into human beings who take money from Pfizer. On that note, the video was talking about freedom cities. Obviously, I know you guys watched it. The first thing I thought when I'm watching all these conservatives post freedom cities, wow, Trump is going to build new cities. And I'm thinking to myself, and I'm like, how easy it would be for the elites to do the World Economic Forum style agenda just through Trump. It's like if World Economic Forum is going to build smart cities, oh my gosh, they're going to enslave us with digital currencies and mandates. The government's so corrupt. But if Donald Trump builds a city with U.S. government money and U.S. government, resources, it's going to be a freedom city. And I'm like, is this really? I guess it's that easy to fool people. I'm gonna post this. I mean, here's a little joke I made. But look, I said how to brand things to trick right-wing NPCs. The Patriot Act, the War on Terror, Operation Warp Speed, Space Force, Freedom Cities, and people are like, yeah, the War on Terror. We're gonna go fight those Muslims and preserve freedom. Now you live in a country that's so sold out to big pharma that I can travel to Saudi Arabia, Dubai. I could go all over the Middle East freely. But if I was unvaccinated, I can't even come to America. So, you went and fought the Muslims for 20 years, but the reality is America is now one of the least free countries in the world when it comes to medical tyranny. Even Australia is more free right now, which is pathetic because Australia is psychotic. And both politicians work for Big Pharma, but, don't worry. They lied to you about the War on Terror. They used branding that made sense to right-wingers. They lied to you about the Patriot Act, which was always going to be used to come after patriots. But I guess if you tell American-loving people that it's for Muslims, they'll believe you. They lied to you about Operation Warp Speed, which hundreds of millions of people still defend because their guy did it. But the government's going to build new cities, and it's totally not going to be It's totally not going to be like what the World Economic Forum does. The U.S. government will build freedom cities because the U.S. government and freedom just go hand in hand. And the guy who's selling the vaccine for the elites harder than Bill Gates, who still won't admit that it's not that good because he did it. He calls himself the father of the vaccine. He's the guy you should trust to build a freedom city, right? And all these Trumpy influencers are like, yeah, oh yeah, Anomaly's so black-pilled if he doesn't believe in freedom cities. Like, I don't care what people say to me. I'm immune to that type of stuff now because it's like, I got my McDonald's in my one hand. And listen, if you want to eat McDonald's, eat McDonald's. Everybody eats something. But it's like, I got my McDonald's in my one hand. I got my Trump vaccine in the other hand. We're going to go to our freedom city with the guy who says that the COVID vaccines were the greatest human achievement in modern history and it saved 100 million lives. Yeah, there's no red flags there, patriots. Go get your freedom cities. If the U.S. government builds a city, I'm not moving. Here's a new idea. How about the U.S. government just gets out of our way and, citizens, companies, and probably entrepreneurs can build their own stuff. Some of the issues I see are the U.S. government getting too involved with stuff, but that's okay. Is what it is. Next story I want to talk about, it's kind of a multi-part story, but Donald Trump, hold on one second. I got to bring up these clips again. Donald Trump is saying, I'll just show you the clip. I saw Nigel Farage say this on Twitter. Trump wants $50 trillion in reparations from the Wuhan lab leak. China must pay. So I guess Trump is now saying, China did the lab leak. The U.S. certainly wasn't there, right? Gain of function research doesn't exist. Echo Health Alliance and Fauci and the overturn of the gain of function, like America, all those labs and stuff. No, patriots. We're going to build some freedom cities and give $50 trillion from China, right? It's pretty funny. Here's from an interview. I sped it up a little bit so I don't get copyright stricken. Here's from an interview with Sky News. The Sky News reporter shockingly actually asked a journalistic question. You very rarely hear Trump get good questions. It's either left-wingers just being psychotic. They're like, did you pee on Russian strippers and stuff? Or like, did I want to see your taxes? That's all left-wingers do. They're like controlled like madness, right? So it's like the left wing goes crazy. The right wing defends Trump against the left wing, but you very rarely hear any right wingers ask Trump any good questions. They're just like, oh my gosh, patriots. So I'm shocked that this lady actually asked him a good question, which was, gain of function used to be illegal. And it was the Trump administration and all his pharmacy lobbyist friends that he hired that overturned the gain of function research. So if you're thinking about gain of function, it wasn't Obama and it wasn't George Bush. It was actually Donald Trump. And she asked him this and listen to his answer. He totally just says, Operation Warp Speed's so great. He doesn't even answer the question. Let's watch.
Do you regret now not paying closer attention? I mean, this gain-of-function research is extremely risky, banned under the Obama administration and then kick-started in 2017 under your watch.
Yeah, no, I think we've done an incredible job between the vaccine and between all of the Operation Warp Speed. I think we did a great job, and people are now starting to see what a great job we did.
So that's the guy that wants $50 trillion from China in reparations. I mean, I'm American, so if you can get that money from China, whatever, I'll take it. But in general, it's like, she's like, gain of function was restarted under your administration. You overturned it. And Trump's like, yeah, Operation Warp Speed's great, lady. They're all in on it. It's so stupid. Mike Pompeo now really cares. It's so funny. I saw this. I like this guy ALX. I'm not doing this to be rude because I actually like him. He, I share his stuff a lot. He's good at posting stuff. But he said Trump asserts dominance over deep state, vows to remain uncontrolled. It's like Trump said. I guess he's like, I'm your retribution, patriots, and everyone's like, oh my gosh, he's our retribution. He's gonna save us from all the things he actually did. It's like, all it takes is one good speechwriter and no one's going to ask him any questions. It's just like, oh yeah, he's really going to do it this time. I mean, he didn't last time, but this time he's going to build freedom cities and he's our it's ridiculous. Anyway, I want to play this clip of Mike Pompeo real quick. I don't like hate Mike Pompeo as a person. I'm sure if we saw each other at like an event, we'd like get along as people, but as far as like politically, I'm not like a Mike Pompeo fan. I would vote for pretty much anybody over Mike Pompeo. It's not like I'm a supporter of him, but I want to play this clip and just like I'll tell you why I posted in a second. I would never vote for Pompeo. I would vote for probably Trump over Pompeo for sure. But here's what I got to say. Let's just listen to Mike Pompeo first.
Would a President Pompeo do a better job at managing the deficit and debt than a President Trump did?
I think a President Pompeo or any conservative president will do better than not only we did during the 4 years of the Trump administration, Barack Obama, George Bush. The list is long, Shannon, of folks who come to Washington on one theory and aren't prepared to stand up and explain to the American people how we're actually going to get that right. It matters to the next generation. The system is at risk. If we don't get it right, we are $31 trillion in the hole. We've got to begin to grow the economy, build it back with lower taxes. And when we do that and grow our economy, we'll get it back right. It's going to take a true conservative leader, Shannon.
Are you saying that President Trump wasn't a true conservative leader?
$6 trillion more in debt. That's never the right direction for the country, Shannon.
Okay, I want to.
So that's funny for 3 reasons. That Pompeo clip's funny for 3 reasons. Ready? I'm going to go through the 3 reasons it's hilarious and everybody's like crying about it on Twitter that I see. The first reason it's hilarious is because Pompeo seems like he'll probably run for president, and Trump had him in his administration for 4 years. So it's like, if people think that Ron DeSantis shouldn't run for office because Ron DeSantis should be loyal to Trump because Trump endorsed him, I think Mike Pompeo owes more loyalty to Donald Trump than DeSantis. It's like Trump gave him a position for 4 years. He gave him 3 years or 2 years. I don't know how long Pompeo worked there after Rex, what was his name? Grossman or something? Tillman? I don't remember. Rex Tillman, the Exxon guy or whatever. It's like, is Trump going to start bashing Pompeo the same way he's bashing DeSantis? Because I think he owes him a little more loyalty. The second reason that's funny is because everybody's complaining about it in my sphere. Like, everybody who likes Trump, that's like, oh my gosh, how dare Pompeo say that? And it's like, honestly, he's kind of right. Like, conservatives run as libertarians, but they govern like socialists. They always say when they're going to get into office, we're going to cut the deficit. It's like, it's hilarious that people still believe Republicans. It's like, I'm not even mad that they keep scamming their base. If their base wants to get scammed, they're like, scam me harder, daddy. And then they scam you and you're like, oh my gosh, what happened? How did the deep state get us? It's like, it's because the people you think are working with you aren't. Every time Republicans run, they say they're going to cut the deficit. Every time Republicans run, they say they're going to be fiscally conservative. And Donald Trump printed more money than Barack Obama and absolutely blew up the deficit even before the pandemic. But it'll be different this time. So it's funny that people are complaining just because it's Mike Pompeo and he sucks. But he's actually right. It's like Trump wasn't conservative at all. He went further left than Obama fiscally, like on paper. But no, I don't want to believe that because his rhetoric's good. Oh, he said things in a speech, though. Like, people are so dumb. The third reason that it's funny, in my opinion, is all the people complaining about Mike Pompeo. They're like, Mike Pompeo's so corrupt, Mike Pompeo's so bad. It's like, yeah, wouldn't it be a shame if somebody hired him? Oh, wait, someone did hire him. Wait, who hired Mike Pompeo? Let me think, because everybody hates Mike Pompeo now on Trump Twitter. Oh, Donald Trump hired Mike Pompeo. It's like, it's such a funny story to me because it's like, everybody's like, oh, he's so bad. Well, then are you going to address the guy who's also running for president who hired him for 2 years? It's like such a fake world that people are building now around Trump. And it's, I think people are just turning into politicians. You could see why Paul Ryan's turned into Paul Ryan's. You could see why Fox News is compromised because everybody acts like they're so different. It's like AOC. Oh, I'm going to fight the corruption of Nancy Pelosi. No, you're not. You're going to turn into Nancy Pelosi, AOC, because you're the same type of soulless vampire I'm sure that's who Nancy Pelosi was when she was like hot and in her 30s or 20s. And you're going to turn into that same soulless vampire with too much surgery or whatever. And same with a lot of these right wingers. They conned you on this, oh, we're so different, we're so ethical. Not really. You know, when push comes to shove, you can't call out your own side. You're joining Trump's attacks on DeSantis, which are fine, but it's like he's accusing DeSantis of all the things that he actually did himself, and he's addressing none of the things he actually did himself. It's turning into a big catfight. And then people are like, Pompeo's so bad, he sucks. So are you going to tell Trump that because Trump hired him? No. I'm not going to talk about that. Okay. Are you going to address the fact that even though Pompeo sucks, he actually is right that Trump didn't govern conservatively? No, because we don't care about actual things. We just want to yell at people and hear words in a speech that someone else wrote for Trump. It's like, really? That's kind of what the movement is now, in my opinion. It's like a bunch of people who don't actually want results. I don't like Pompeo. I like Trump better than Pompeo, but what he said is absolutely right. Republicans govern as fiscal conservatives, or they campaign as that, and then they govern like socialists. Oh, every time they do that. We're going to cut your taxes and we're going to totally stop the spending. No, they're not. So that's what people are mad at. The people, and listen, I'm not a DeSimp, or I don't really care that much about DeSantis. All I'm asking for is that people that criticize DeSantis and are just bashing everybody that likes him, that's fine. But just have that same energy with Trump. If you're mad at DeSantis for taking donors, talk about the fact that Trump took $100 million from corporations last time, and he took hundreds of millions of dollars from Sheldon Adelson. If you can't address Trump taking donor money and hiring a bunch of shills, Mitch McConnell's wife, pharmacy lobbyists, a bunch of losers, then you're not a real journalist. You're not a good person. You're just another like evil, psychotic, political psychopath that's just like literally spiraling at like over like emotional. It's so old. So that's all I'm really saying is people, in my view, in like the Trump influencer world, are losing their minds a little bit because they're just kind of copying what Trump does. So if Trump just accuses Ron DeSantis of things that Trump did the same or worse, instead of being like, well, DeSantis should have done that better, but also it is weird that Trump is accusing him of things that he also did and kind of did worse, that would be like a normal person. But it's like, I don't have a personality of myself, so I live vicariously through Trump, so I'm just going to do whatever Trump does. It's like, it's turning people into maniacs. It's like they're like lashing out at Mike Pompeo for saying something that every libertarian says, which is actually true, which is that Trump didn't govern conservatively and the deficit didn't change. That's true. It got worse, and it always does under Republicans. I don't know the last time they've actually done. So it's just weird. Like, people have no critical thinking skills. They don't have their own personality. They have no journalistic integrity. It's like either your team red or your team blue, your team Trump or your team DeSantis, and let's just fight and bash our heads against each other and ignore reality, stop doing actual reporting. Like, that's really what people are going to do for 2 years. I mean, that's fine. It just, I'm like shocked that so many people that I respect and like are like losing their minds over this stuff, and they just can't be honest about it. Speaking of people that can't be honest about things, here is Rachel Levine talking about her diet plan, because, of course, if you want to be healthy, look no further than Rachel Levine. I mean, they'll help you. I'm just going to say they, because I don't know the pronoun.
Hello, I am Admiral Rachel Levine, the Assistant Secretary for Health at the United States Department of Health and Human Services. March is National Nutrition Month, and the Biden-Harris administration is taking action to support public health by offering evidence-based guidance on nutrition. The 2025 to 2030 Federal Dietary Guidelines Advisory Committee just met for the first time to begin its review of the relationship between diet and health throughout our lives. This committee will make recommendations for the new dietary guidelines for Americans based on a number of important factors, including socioeconomic status, race, ethnicity, and culture. Each of these factors impacts the food that we eat, the food that we're able to access, in our overall nutritional outlook. This work is very timely because our country is facing a genuine crisis of diet-related diseases. Heart disease, type 2 diabetes, obesity, and hypertension each affect tens of millions of Americans and are associated with increased risk of heart attack and stroke, the two leading causes of death in this country. This crisis places a tremendous economic burden on our nation. Estimated health care costs associated with excess weight and obesity totaled nearly $173 billion in 2019. These burdens fall especially hard on communities of color, people living in rural areas and U.S. territories, and those living with disabilities. Older adults, the LGBTQI+ community, military families, and veterans. This National Nutrition Month, please learn more about healthy eating and how you can do your part to support healthy people, healthy communities, and a healthy nation for all. Please visit dietaryguidelines.gov. Again, dietaryguidelines.gov for professional and consumer resources to put the dietary guidelines for Americans into practice.
Produced by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services.
Thank you. Thank you, Rachel Levine. I'm a white boy who likes women. What should I eat? I'm white-ish. I'm part Puerto Rican, but I don't know. It depends how tan I am at the time. I'm mostly seen as a Caucasian, and you know, what should I eat? What should the LGBTQ plus eat? Can you explain all I heard was like diversity, LGBTQ, racism. I didn't even hear anything about health. And, taking one look at them, I'm not really interested in their health plan because if they're doing their own health plan, it doesn't look like it's working. And if they're not doing the health plan, then why should I listen to somebody who's not even doing it? That's the state of the country. That's the country we live in. That's the health director, really? What is there to say that hasn't already been said? Let's move to my last video. I sped it up a little bit so I don't get copyrighted. Here is Bernie Sanders. Spoiler alert to any progressives out there. Bernie Sanders is a phony. He's been extremely phony for a while. I mean, honestly, you could find some old clips of Bernie. He actually used to have a spine and some integrity. He used to be, honestly, harder against certain parts of immigration than even Trump was. You could find old videos of him talking about H-1B visas being bad because it was bad for the American worker. And Trump actually, believe it or not, supports H-1B visas for his donor friends, patriots. But anyway, here's Bernie now, of course, saying nothing about the Ukraine war because he's a loser. Here, let's watch.
Should America send F-16s?
It's not an issue that I've been heavily involved in, but I support what the president is doing. I think what Putin did was outrageous, not only for the people of the Ukraine and all the destruction, not only for the thousands and tens of thousands of Russian soldiers who have been dying. We need a world now, if we're going to combat climate change, if we're going to combat future pandemics, we need a world to come together. And Putin has radically disrupted that, and that is a real tragedy. But I think at the end of the day, the United States, NATO cannot sit back and allow Putin's aggression to go unresponded to.
He said he agrees with what the president's doing. Of course he does. Bernie has no mind of his own anymore. If we're going to fight climate change, Putin's going to really got to do something about it. Last story is, and then I'll read a few questions and I'm going to go off. I'm going to try to put these into short clips, so hopefully you like it. This is the last story, and then respond and let me know anything you guys want to say about any story, and I'll read a few comments before I leave. This is Bill Malugin, one of my favorite reporters at Fox. He's a good guy. Per federal sources, a female Border Patrol agent working solo was violently assaulted by a male illegal immigrant she was taking to custody in Tucson, Arizona sector early Saturday a.m., leaving her with injuries. And apparently she was assigned by herself and was trying to investigate an illegal entry. And while being placed in a service vehicle, the subject assaulted the agent, injuring the agent's face and hands. Additional agents responded and took the suspect into custody. Here's what I want to say about that real quick. Everybody wants to talk about trans sports, like, transgender women that are men, transgender women, they shouldn't play sports because they're too strong, right? It's like South Park did an episode about it where there was a biologically born man who said he was a woman and he just started beating the crap out of all the women in the Olympics. It's a hilarious episode, right? Everybody wants to talk about that. I'm fine with that. I'm not trying to cover it up. I agree. I think there needs to be rules on sports. With that being said, can we talk about women in the military and women in law enforcement? If we know that a biological man is just stronger than a woman 9 times out of 10, and it's just true, why are we allowing women to be Border Patrol agents and working alone? If even the men, it's like, don't they go through some sort of training? You're supposed to be trained and strong and capable, or else you probably shouldn't do the job. You're letting a woman just work alone at night, but I bet no conservatives will say that because it's like, oh, they can do the job just the same as men. No, not really. No, they can't. Some can, yeah, with a gun. I think women have some role. I'm not trying to say they shouldn't be there, but if men turning into women shouldn't be playing sports, then why should they be patrolling and being security guards? I personally think like women security guards, like you better be really alert and really good with the gun. Cause like I've watched videos all the time of women just getting the crap beaten out of them because They're just sitting there alone, and someone's like, "Oh, that lady." And there's some loser guys too, or like weak guys that like can't, fight their way out of a paper bag. I'm not saying all men are capable. It's just like I think there needs to be a conversation about if women should be patrolling alone, whether it be a police or border. I don't think so. And some men shouldn't too, but I think it's like being politically correct. Like, oh, some women are better than some men at soccer. Yeah, but on average, they're just not, Some women are better than men at basketball. Yes, but on average, you take the best of both, the men are dominating. So can we have a real conversation about that? Or is that something that CPAC doesn't want to? With that being said, I want to say this. A lot of tradition is hated on where they're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe things were done like that in the 30s and 40s. And I'm not just talking about like segregation, because that's what someone's going to say. Oh, if you want to make America great again, that means you want to go back to the 1700s and do. No, that's not what I'm saying. But there is a conversation about that though, as far as like MLK and how they did it. A lot of that, even the Civil War, etc. There's a lot of people that have, I would say the history that they tell in the history books is not always 100% accurate to what happened. It's kind of like they put like this cookie cutter Nickelodeon version of what happened and just feed it to everybody. With that being said, it's like, there's a reason a man and a woman were known as a marriage, because a man and a woman create a baby and it's the perfect kind of family unit to procreate. Doesn't mean you're hateful against the rainbow people. It just means that's why the word meant that, and it did actually mean that. But now that it doesn't, it's like, okay, but there was a reason for it. When it comes to like why women didn't do certain things, it wasn't because men were oppressing them. In my opinion, feminism was a lie. Women didn't used to be security guards. Women didn't used to be bodyguards. Women didn't used to, be in the military to that extreme. Now they are. Is that a good thing? I don't think so. I think just like, and I'm going to use this as an example. I'm not saying that like I'm better than every woman at something. And I'm not saying that women shouldn't do things. I think women should do what they want to do in this world. But I think if you're going to say that biologically born men shouldn't compete in sports with women, you should also know that a biological illegal immigrant is going to beat the crap out of a, woman bodyguard or whatever she is, a border agent, a lot easier than he's going to beat the crap out of a man. It's the same logic, except applied to something that conservatives aren't willing to talk about. I'm not saying this is the most important issue. I'm not saying that this like affects me every day. I just think feminism was a lie, and historically and traditionally, there's a reason that things were the way they were, because it actually just made more sense. I'm not saying some things aren't better, some things are, but this goes back to the conversation I always try to have. And I did a poll where I said, what's more important to you? What do you strive for more? Freedom or discipline? Everybody said freedom. They strive for freedom more than discipline. I disagree. I strive for discipline more than freedom because I think it's more important. I'm not saying freedom's not important in America, but discipline makes a man great, not freedom. Everybody's free to do what they want, but the greatest of all, in every sport, every profession, it's the discipline that makes them great, not their worldview like this, honing in on what's true. And I think, there's something to be said about that in this world. And I think that everybody's buying into this false idea that it's so great to just do everything. And it's like, it's really not, John Jones just won. He said he's happier now than he's ever been. He used to party. He used to hang out with hookers. He used to be free. He used to do whatever he wanted. Now he goes to bed early and he says he's happier than ever. Why? Because with freedom comes responsibility, and sometimes doing everything is not as, I would say, rewarding as being disciplined. So I'm not trying to take away people's free speech or right to bear arms, obviously. But I'm just saying discipline makes people happy and great. And there's something to be said there. It's like women are free to do whatever they want. Yeah, but are women happier than they used to be? Some are, but some aren't, because, total freedom for a woman isn't happiness, like that's not like total freedom for me is not happiness. Like when I'm disciplined and when I'm scheduled, that's when I'm happy. When I'm working, that's when I'm happy. If I just sat around all day, that's when I'm not happy. I'm not saying it's up to you. I'm not telling the government to come in and do this, but this is, in my opinion, a misconception that both parties kind of fall for. It's like, look how free women are. Women can be police officers and they could be, border patrol agents, and they could do this and they could be bodyguards. And it's like, to me, it's the same thing as trans sports. They could do it, but eventually they're going to be out, powered, because that's just biological. Certain jobs people used to not do. And here's what I'll say, because I think there's things that certain people are better at. Like, there's certain people that are just really good pilots. And it's like, I don't really want to get into why they are. It's just like fly the plane. I'm not like, if all the pilots are like white with orange hair, I'm not like, I want someone with my hair color to be a pilot. I don't care. If orange haired, like 50-year-old white guys are the best pilots, I'm not sure why, but I noticed that pattern. Whatever. With that being said, if you look at chess, recently it came out that the top 100 people of all genders were all men. Why are men better at chess on average? There are women better at chess, but if you have unfiltered freedom, 100% of the top 100 at this time when I looked were all men. I'm not saying men are smarter, because I think women are better at certain things, but like in chess, that's not true. Why? I don't know, but it's worth looking into, and then figuring out what people are good at, and then hiring the best people for the job. It's like if the 100 of the top 100 bodyguards are men, it's like, I don't think a woman needs to be free and go in do it. It's like, let's just be honest. Like, it's, if you're a bouncer at a club, why do you think they're always like jacked dudes? Because jacked dudes make better bouncers than like small, frail dudes. The same way a jacked dude would make a better bouncer than a woman. That's just the reality of how physical, I guess jobs work. I'm just saying, there's a conversation to be had, but, I guess consider it had, because I just said it. I mean, I don't know if it's right to say or it's fair. These are just thoughts in my head. I don't think it's, I'm being hateful or rude. I think there's women who'd make a better security guard than me. Just my thoughts, this, and these are the type of combos that I feel like are never had, because it's just simply not like politically correct. So for example, with CPAC, right? CPAC's the big like conservative conference. They kicked out Nick Fuentes, who, I don't know if you know Nick Fuentes. He got a lot more famous recently because he's been like Ye's campaign guy. You could watch interviews with Nick Fuentes. I would say you should, because at least try to know who he is versus what the media says, just like with Trump, just like with Ye, just like with anyone. I'm not saying you're going to agree with everything he says, but wouldn't you rather know who he is versus like I'd rather you watch a full Ye interview than read the CNN headline, and I'd rather you watch a full Trump interview than read a headline. But with that being said, Nick Fuentes got banned from CPAC. CPAC's one of the biggest conservative outlets. You could be a drag queen and go to CPAC. You could be a log cabin Republican. Obviously, that's like, they love those events. You could be a liberal. You could be a left-wing news outlet that hates Republicans and you think they're all fascists, and you will be allowed in CPAC. You have an easier time getting into CPAC as a left-wing smear agent than as Nick Fuentes. So what does that say about the slippery slope? The right-wingers are just gatekeepers of the slippery slope. I've watched certain quote unquote conservatives, they'll say, drag queen story hour is bad, but then they'll dress in drag as a comedy routine in front of a bunch of kids. I'm just saying, I'm not being hateful. I'm just saying, I've watched people say, it's indoctrination. They shouldn't teach LGBTQ stuff to children. And then I go to a Republican event and they have the log cabin gay Republicans on stage when there's kids in the audience, just as young as in liberal schools. So it's like, if you truly believe it's bad to push LGBT stuff on, 10-year-olds, why are you having an event with 10-year-olds where you put gay Republicans on a stage to talk about how gay they are? I'm just saying, there's no consistency in the right wing. All they do is suck up donor money, in my opinion, work for a foreign country and call it hate speech when you figure out what they're doing. And, allow the slippery slope to just completely take over. They're not fiscally conservative. They're not really socially conservative. And they'll kick out Nick Fuentes out of a family event before they kick out a drag queen. That's just the truth. That's just who they are. I'm not being rude. I'm not being mean. I just think that the Republican Party is an open tent for the left and a closed tent for people on the right who question their allegiances. And just like Ye, Nick Fuentes doesn't word everything like in a way that is like digestible, I guess, to some people. But the truth is, when you figure out who the donors are that are paying hundreds of millions and billions of dollars to the Republican Party, when you figure out who they are and what they want, they're going to call it hate speech when you figure it out. If $100 million was given by a Saudi Arabian prince to the Republican Party to pass a speech law for Saudi Arabia. And I said, hey, the Saudis are, giving money to Republicans to pass speech laws in America. Nobody would call me Islamophobic on the right. But if I do the same thing with an Israeli donor, all of a sudden they call me anti-Semitic. I'm not being rude. I just know who the big donors are in the Republican Party, and I know what they care about because I listen to their speeches. And there's a reason that Donald Trump passed speech laws for Israel. There's a reason that Ron DeSantis passed speech laws for Israel. There's a reason that they're kicking Nick Fuentes out of their conference because he talks about that stuff. So that's who the Republican Party is. You can be a drag, you could be a trans. They don't care. Caitlyn Jenner will be invited, Blair White, but not Nick Fuentes. I'm just saying, if you're going to be an open tent, be an open tent for everybody. If you're only an open tent for these people, but you're not even an open tent for conservatives who disagree with what you're doing, you're not really an open tent. You're just gatekeeping the slippery slope. That's my view. It's just fake. I'm fine with people allowing everyone to come to their event, but then allow everyone to come to your event. If you're going to allow all these people to come to your event, but you close the door for people like Nick, it's all fake. And I know it's fake because they almost banned me from TPUSA. You know me. You know I'm not hateful. I'm not hateful to the rainbows. I'm not hateful to foreign countries. I like every country. I like the people from every country. I'm just speaking reality in a kind way. They almost banned me from TPUSA because I had said certain things about TPUSA and the Republican Party. But when I was waiting for my pass to get into Turning Point, I'm next to Reuters, I'm next to Getty, all these left-wing outlets. I'm talking to the people who work there. They have an easier time getting into the event sometimes than I do. And they did let me into the TPUSA event, so I don't want to cause a huge stink, and I appreciate them. I had fun. But, did they do these type of checks to other people? Like, why am I getting flagged, like red flagged and called? And, basically, if I didn't fight it, I would have got banned. I got called from the guy who said, Anomaly, we're so happy to have you at Turning Point USA. He calls me and says, hey, Anomaly, I got bad news. You can't come. And then I basically, gave him an ultimatum in a sense. I'm like, I can't come to your event, but left-wing news outlets can come. That's pathetic. And then he's like, we changed our minds. Yeah, it's embarrassing. I mean, it's embarrassing that you almost kicked me out of your... That's who they are, though. If you ever find out who they are and what they're doing, they'll kick you out, and they'll allow the slippery slope of the left to work. Fiscally, economically, socially, they don't care. I could show clips. People might not believe it, but, Bernie Sanders 15 years ago was on CNN saying he doesn't believe in H-1B visas. Bernie Sanders is a total liar now, but he used to say H-1B visas are bad because it undermines and undercuts the American worker, which is true. Bernie Sanders used to tell the truth about H-1B visas. Fast forward 7 years, Donald Trump is on Fox News telling Laura Ingraham why he supports H-1B visas. And Laura Ingraham says, no, H-1B visas are bad for Americans. And Trump says, no, they're not. We need to get the smart people. So just in 7 years, Donald Trump is further left than Bernie Sanders on H-1B visas, but nobody realizes because Donald Trump talks like he's your best friend. But Anomaly, did you hear the CPAC speak? Yeah, I heard his CPAC speech, but I also watched him for 4 years on president. He went further left than Bernie Sanders on H-1B visas. He hired Mitch McConnell's wife. He hired Mike Pompeo. He hired a bunch of swampers. He hired pharmacy lobbyists. He took more corporate donations for his inauguration than Obama and Biden. That's a fact. And then he basically ran around the country selling the vaccine harder than Bill Gates without the integrity, honesty, or self-awareness to admit that the product isn't what he said it was. Even Bill Gates admits there's 3 problems with it moving forward, and Donald Trump says it's the greatest human achievement. He's a liar. He's a con artist. He's a fraud. Oh, but he said nice things to CPAC. Okay, then just keep getting scammed? Well, I don't know. People said nice things, so you believe them, even though they did the opposite. This is who the Republicans are. You don't actually have to do things that they want you to do. You just have to talk about it and sell them on the idea that you're going to do it. I didn't do it in 4 years, but I'm going to do it the next time. I printed more money than Obama, but if I don't talk about it, nobody's even going to know I did it because we'll just act like it didn't exist. That's the Trump campaign. He's not looking at his last 4 years and saying, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this. Here's where I fell short. Here's where I'm going to take forward. His whole campaign is just gaslighting everybody into acting like he didn't do that and just like, I'm going to build cities and, the government's going to save you. We're against the government. But the government's going to build cities and save you. But we're small government. He's not small government. If he has the government build a bunch of cities, it's a bold move. But here's the thing. The pro is, I wish the U.S. government did more things with their money. The con is, one, it's nice to have land. I don't think every land needs to be developed. I don't think we need new cities, actually, to be honest. If you go to like Lake Havasu or you travel the country, I've been to cities that are totally underdeveloped. Like Lake Havasu's underdeveloped. 80% of the cities in this country are underdeveloped. Like, you could just build these cities a little more. It's like people are living in like clay houses and stuff out there. It's cool, but it's like you don't need to build entire new cities on government land. One, it's nice to actually have land preserved. Two, do people not realize, like, the federal government building a city? Who's going to control these freedom cities? 4 years of Trump, and then let's just say Gavin Newsom gets in. I'm not saying that's true, but historically, it's Democrats and Republicans, and it always flips back at a certain point. You're going to let Donald Trump build a U.S. government city on government land, and then he gets out of office, and a Democrat's in, and now the Democrats control the government city, and it's going to be a freedom city? Are people this dumb? It's shocking. Like, you know, how, like, what are the laws of the government run city? Like, how about we just build one of the 10,000 spots that are underdeveloped in America? Besides the big cities and like coastal land, pretty much everything's underdeveloped in America. You know, they're like 90 something percent of the country is probably like could be built on. They're building everywhere. Phoenix, they're building. Dallas, they're building. I agree, there's just too much going on there, but it's like, I don't see the U.S. government building a new city. Like, that's the ideal. How about in conservative counties, the government just gets out of the way of small business owners and corporations, and people build their own city, you know, with less government restrictions? No, the U.S. government's going to finance a city. I'm not saying it's not going to work, but if people don't at least ask questions about that and just let them build it, how do we know it's not going to turn into like you know what I'm saying, like a slave city? But it's worth a try. I mean, I think it would be nice if the government could commissioned like the building of new churches and then got out of the way, or like beautiful buildings. And, you know, I'm all for like national parks are beautiful, buildings are beautiful, like new infrastructure, architecture. I'm fine with the government building stuff, like new museums, you know, government owns certain stuff. There are certain things the government does that are cool, but an entire city built by the federal government, you know, I don't know. It could go either way for sure. At least worth considering. All right, I'm going to read one or two comments, and then I'm going to take off. Someone said DeSantis also told Trump supporters to leave public property in a closet when he was doing the book signing. Is he going to red flag everyone that he does to MAGA, just like the Star during the Holocaust? Well, I think that's a bit of an exaggeration, but I'm fine with people questioning Ron DeSantis. All I'm saying is use the same energy with Trump. If you ignore everything Trump did and just say, oh, DeSantis is this, it's a controlled ops circus. So feel free to question why DeSantis is kicking people out. My question is, though, if he's doing a book signing and people come in with megaphones to just like annoy him, does he have to let you in? Does Trump allow people with megaphones to come into Trump rallies and just cause a scene? I don't know. I mean, I don't know the exact details of it, but feel free to question Ron DeSantis. But, you know, I think it's fine. If he's kicking out people for having Trump hats and stuff, question it. I'm not asking you to softball DeSantis. He's running for office. He's traveling the country. Ask him questions. Hold him accountable. Be reasonable. Be honest. Be fair. But don't just do it one way. That's all I see on my social media is people that are like just like harping so hard over stuff. But it's also like they're just becoming like annoying to me, where they're just like, and you're like, what? But yeah, I mean, I'm not asking people to softball DeSantis. I think you should ask them questions. Let me see. Someone said UN Agenda 2030 is real, people. No, fact checkers said it's a conspiracy theory. Now, listen to your Rachel Levine diet plan. Rachel Levine will tell you how to eat properly, okay? Don't listen to these conspiracy theories about working out and fitness. You need Rachel Levine to tell you exactly how to be healthy. Now, go to the government website and get your Rachel Levine nom-noms. You're like, she should make her own cereal, Rachel Levine cereal, you know, with just like sugar, high fructose corn syrup, maybe some mRNA in there. I don't know. Appreciate. I'm just joking. So Kathy said, "Don't be a jerk either at these events." Yeah, well, that was my question with people, like, where if DeSantis is just kicking people out because they're wearing Trump merch, that's insane. But if people are coming with megaphones and signs and basically trying to like just interrupt the event, I don't know at what point I would allow conversation and debate, but I would basically have to be there to really see what was going on. But question it. I'm not trying to softball him. He's running for president. He deserves all the scrutiny. God bless you. Appreciate you. Have a good one. I'll be back. I was going to just take the day off, but I decided to do this show, and all the audio is going to be on Dreamer podcast, and hopefully Rumble like lets me live stream. I tried to. I don't think it worked, but hopefully that'll work soon. Thanks for being here, folks. I'll be back very soon. Dreamer podcast, streaming everywhere now.